So, last week, what's today, Monday, last week and Friday, November 13th, the channel Unus Annus came to an end. It had uploaded a video once every day for a year. Name in Latin, Unus Annus, 1 year. The creators of the channel, the facial creators? That doesn't work. The people whose faces were typically on camera. Right. Mark and Ethan, Markiplier, and Crank Gameplays at individual channels, whatever. That doesn't really matter for the most part. For what I'm getting at, for an intro video that's starting out very awkwardly. But their channel, they ended it. This was a plan from the beginning that they would end it after 1 year. And my wife and I, we watched the live stream. It was a 12-hour live stream on the final day of the channel, terminating at midnight of the 14th, when they actively deleted the channel on the streams. This is the last thing we saw. Everything went black, and Mark and Ethan the next day both uploaded sort of response videos to just with their overall kind of processing and overview of the termination of the channel and culmination of it, really, not just termination. They didn't just cancel it. I mean, it was had done what they'd set out for it to do, and apparently much more significantly than they had ever figured it would. I realized, especially during Mark's response, that maybe this is just conjecture. I mean, I hate saying it because I feel like I'm making some kind of assumption, and I say it, of course, in mind with like him or whoever else involved hearing it in mind. But it does seem like there's a pretty significant disconnect, maybe not with the entire audience, which, mind you, is substantial. They had over 4.5 million subscribers the evening that they ended the channel, and at the moment that it was deleted, that it stopped, the live stream stopped on Friday, they had over 1.5 million, over 1,500,000 people actively watching at that time. I mean, that's more than a lot of television stations have at any given time, maybe most of them. And I realized that I think maybe there's sort of a disconnect, because while it was like, oh yeah, people are grieving and it's okay to grieve, and but the channel did what it was supposed to, and we're proud of it and all this work, and I mean, that's a huge feat to upload as consistently as they did, and as with the quality that, a couple of idiots goofing off, sure, but there was so much more that went into it than just like what I'm doing here right now. There seems to be a disconnect, like a lack of realization of just how much of a genuine and genuinely self-maintaining community had been built around their channel. Around it, under it, alongside it, really. Along with it. So for them to just end it all, kind of Thanos snap, at least a very great many people, potentially without any community, certainly without one of that type, that supportive, that sort of connective. Because what they may not realize, I think, is that very many of not just their individual viewers, but specifically this channel, are viewers who struggle with just myriad invisible illness and mental illness. People who tend to be social pariahs, and they're kind of doing it as a persona on camera, but they can still generally function. Ethan and Mark can still generally function, socially speaking. Of course, it's no has been made. I need different wording. Um, Ethan has ADHD, and I could go into that and the difficulties there. But I think generally maybe, and maybe Ethan kind of gets it a little bit more than Mark. I'm not sure. I really don't know Mark's story one way or the other. But regardless of what they themselves have and do struggle with, yeah, there seems to be almost a either a lack of realization or a lack of really coming to the forefront of just how important this community has been to thousands, tens of thousands, maybe even more of us. I didn't even really think about any of this until until my wife and I, like I said, we watched the stream and then we just broke down. Each of us broke down crying. And first, we didn't realize that each of us was both like bawling or trying not to, so we were kind of trying to hide it. And then it was just some, like pure dysfunctionality for like 3 hours. And I mean, we generally are dysfunctional anyway. But to the point where it was actively like dealing with a tragedy, it's a significant loss of something, but something generally good. I won't say holistically good by any means, because there's so much that was intentionally offensive, of course, to Christians, I think primarily, but like generally good to so many people, and to lose it immediately, and yeah, like we knew it was coming, but like if you want to scale it up to when someone dies, you can know that their death is coming, but it doesn't especially make it easier. I mean, it may make the acknowledgement of it come a little bit sooner, but it doesn't make it easier. And so just seeing this massive and massively, productive community just effectively be abolished because on the end of the few who were sort of facilitating the whole thing, they had achieved what they wanted to set out to do with it, and that was kind of the whole point. And if you were able to get something out of it, great. If not, fine. So it kind of indicates to me that it wasn't really about the audience, and frankly, that's fine. I mean, it's a social media platform. It's YouTube. Like, it's difficult not to have that end up being the case, I think. But all this, fast forwarding all of this, for me, on the back burner in here for at least a year now, I think. Yeah, over a year. I've realized the need to, get onto this platform and attempt to facilitate some sort of community, not of my own, but kind of in my demographic. What is that? Christian, openly, absolutely, but also nerd and someone who has kind of an alphabet soup of mental disorders, and honestly don't really get help for any of it. So why? Because twofold. One, nerds, geeks, pick your aspect of the church, of Christianity, Christian culture. There's just no room. It's either kind of ignored or it is downplayed, it's misunderstood. Just whether it's something, as pop culture as like the MCU, or, I mean, geez, how dare you go into things like Dungeons and Dragons? I mean, so it's either totally misunderstood or it's outright forbidden, taboo, whatever. So those of us who kind of have these interests in the church have to end up going to secular communities to be able to plug in with this kind of stuff. But then, of course, it gets really difficult, like we've seen, even just with the Unus Annus channel. Like, a lot of what they did was specifically poking fun at Christians and Christian beliefs specifically. Never, with the one questionable exception, never towards any other belief system or people in any other belief system. Yeah, so there's this need for kind of these two circles to come together. Nerds on the one hand and Christians at the same time. And I know there's some support for this, but I want to get even more specific, because one of the other most significant demographics that are misunderstood, neglected, ignored, misunderstood, neglected, forbidden, really, condemned, are those of us with mental illness. There's such a huge stigma around it and misunderstanding surrounding it, just in general. And when you get to specific symptoms, specific actual manifestations of invisible illness, it's like it's just supposed to all go away. Read your Bible more, pray more, smile more, make more friends, go to church more, do more ministry, think more positively, find your joy in the Lord. Okay. I even watched a few videos when I typed up, actually, the name of this channel, The Depressed Christian. I ran a search for it on YouTube, and I watched a few of the videos. I have a number of more kind of lined up, in my playlist to go over. But just get a kind of idea of what is there, and there seems to be sort of two camps, which isn't terribly surprising, at least from what I've gotten through so far. One is kind of the disconnected, pandering camp. Those who don't really know what they're talking about, who want to give you advice anyway, and you need to hurry up and take it, and if you would listen to them, you'd get better. And then surprisingly, okay, so it is right. This, maybe not, I wasn't expecting it. Was a couple of doctors coming on and saying, look, specifically regarding medication, like for like antidepressants and for anxiety and stuff like that, effectively saying that no, it's not inherently bad. But one of them came from that approach, and then the other one was like, use sparingly, but not inherently evil. Okay, so at least there's some school of thought moving in that direction, but generally speaking, there's no room for it. And so that's kind of what I want to do here, is make a space for those of us who love Jesus, love his church, love, anime, video games, comics, whatever, can't really get along with most of his people. Not that we are antisocial in the sense of not liking people, but just in the sense of, like, there's this such expectation to hide yourself, to have to reform your countenance into something other, something more mainstream, more socially acceptable, to be able to fit in or function at all. And some of us try to do that for a time, and it's painful. Some of us do that to the point where we lose ourselves, and some of us just are kind of not able to, or give up, because it's not really, frankly, a worthy goal anyway. And there, I hope to have, a lot more discussion on all this stuff later. I know I've been rambling on for a long time at this point, and the studio isn't even properly set up yet. The camera angle is horrible, but I had this train of thought. I wanted to get it out there. Hopefully someone sees it, and we'll go from there.